Hi, how you guys doing? Welcome to In Air's Kitchen. I'm Air here with Blue, my son, and we're gonna do pickles today. We're gonna do quick pickles. We had some technical difficulties day one, and we had some technical difficulties day two, but we hope we're learning from that, and today, fingers crossed, should run really smoothly. This might seem like a pretty simple thing. We're just going to do this one thing today, which is pickling vegetables, but I think it's something a lot of people may not know how to do or may not have done at home. It's a pretty easy thing to do. It's a fun one to do with kids, and it can prolong the life of your vegetables. So I was thinking this might be great at this moment in time, as a lot of us are going to be stuck at home for a little while. If you bulked up on some fresh veggies and you've got some beautiful roots in your refrigerator, this is a way to give them like extra weeks. And we're going to give Michael Doctor a call a little bit later. He's my favorite root farmer, and we're going to ask him some questions and talk to him a little bit about different pickling techniques and stuff. So that's the idea for this episode. The reason this style of pickle is called a quick pickle is because it's different than a fermented pickle. Those kind of pickles would take a little bit longer because you have to wait for a few days or weeks for the kind of pickling to happen that you'd like. In this case, we're going to use, instead of using microbes to get to the sour, pickly flavors we want, we're just going to use vinegar. And so that's going to make this a really quick pickle. This is also what a lot of, if you buy pickles in a grocery store, probably most of the pickles you buy are this style of pickle. And what we're doing today, we're just going to refrigerate them. You can eat them right away. They won't taste like a lot. If you wait a day, they'll have more flavor. If you wait 2 or 3 days, they'll have even more flavor yet. But this is also a method you could use and then process the vegetables with. So you could have canning equipment, and you can process it, and then you can put it on your shelves and have pickles that last for a long time. So these pickles up here, these I've got here beets. These are probably beets as well. Carrots, cucumbers. We've got some hot peppers. These are all pickled with a brine. So they're basically the same kind of pickling, except these have all been processed so that they're shelf stable. The ones we're making today, we're not going to process them, so we just put them in the fridge.
How long have those been there?
How long have they been there? Oh, they're probably good for a year, maybe a little longer, but probably you don't want to go a lot longer than that. So so that's what we're up to. Let's go through the recipe really quickly. And so this is roughly based on a pickling brine that we use at Clover. If you eat at Clover, you may be familiar with it because the chickpea fritter sandwich, our most popular sandwich by far, that sandwich has some pickled vegetables in it. It has pickled cucumbers, which we actually don't pickle ourselves. We buy those. And then it has pickled cabbage, red cabbage, and we do pickle that ourselves, so we pickle that in this brine. We also have pickled carrots on there, and we used to have pickled red onions, although we haven't been doing that anymore. So those are items that we pickle every day at Clover. So we make big vats of brine, and we pickle these fresh vegetables every day. And this is basically a scaled version of the recipe we use. I've adjusted, it actually has a little less salt than we typically use in that recipe, but you can always play around with salt levels to get to where you want it to be. So just going through that, I think that because the amount of vegetables you're pickling may vary, a good way to think about this recipe is in terms of ratios. So we have 4 parts vinegar, 4 parts water, 1 part sugar. And so if you wanted to make this without sugar, you could. It obviously is less sweet, but there are a lot of really yummy pickles that don't have any sugar. Grillo's pickles. We used to have, Travis had a little pop-up shop next to Clover, and most of his pickle brines, he doesn't use sugar in those, and they're delicious. So it's fine if you wanted to exclude the sugar. In that case, if you're following this, you just do it 1-to-1. And so an example of this, which is probably pretty closely what we'll be following today, would be 4 cups of vinegar, 4 cups of water, 1 cup of sugar. So that's the 4-4-1. And then we're going to add some salt to that. We're going to do 4 tablespoons of salt, but I'll probably taste that before we end up pickling it. And then you can add whatever spices you want. And we're going to make a very simple brine, and we're not going to focus too much on the spices. But if you want, you can use all different kinds of spices in your pickles. So if anybody has questions as we go, I actually got the comments up this time, so I should be able to see the live comments, and maybe we can even respond if people have questions. if you're wondering, you know, can you pickle this? That might be a good place to start. We'll show you some vegetables we have that I think will pickle really well, but if you've got questions about them, we can always talk a little bit about that. And we'll post this recipe online so you can refer to that later. So should we get started, Blue?
Yeah.
All right, so we've got some vegetables right here, but let's come over here to the sink. And this is really the first step in this process, is going to be washing your vegetables. So here we have some really beautiful carrots of different colors. A lot of these vegetables I have right now came from Michael Doctor, who we're going to be talking to later. He has a winter CSA share, and I think I got my last pickup of that 2 weeks ago. So a lot of these vegetables are going to be from that share. This is a daikon, and we can ask Michael Doctor. I think this might be called the Starburst Daikon, but I'm sure he can tell us if I'm right about that. We have a turnip here. We have some beets, some different colored beets, and we have some radishes. So these are the things we're going to work with. And then Blue, you wanted to show. Let's start with washing a carrot. Now, you can take all the skin off, but if you have really beautiful organically grown vegetables, the skin's going to be really sweet and it's super nutritious. So if you have great products you're starting with, I wouldn't take the skin off. And a lot of what we do at Clover, we don't take the skins off. If you want to leave the skin on, I'd recommend washing it. And this is a clean scrubby pad, and Blue's just going to scrub that carrot. And the goal here is just to take off that first little layer and get rid of any dirt that might be there, so that you've got a little cleaner skin. That's really what we're trying to do here. Now, Michael Doctor does a really good job washing his carrots, so they're not that dirty. You don't see a lot coming off, but this is going to be the starting place for us. Awesome. Do you want to show them what that looks like? It's really pretty. Okay. And
inside.
yeah, it's really pretty carrots. They're gonna be fun. All right. You want to do? Let's do one that we peel. You want to peel a daikon?
Yeah.
All right. So this is the daikon. The daikon, even if it's grown really well, it can have a little bit of a thicker skin on it. So one way to deal with that is to just take a peeler and peel that off. If you don't have a peeler, you can try doing this with a knife. It's just a little more difficult. Be careful if you're using a knife. Peelers have the advantage of being a little safer to use. And this way that Blue's doing it, this is my preferred way to peel. Basically, you're pulling it toward yourself, using your thumb to guide your hand along the vegetable there. And the more you do this, the faster you'll get, and you'll gain experience. Blue's doing a really good job being careful right now, which is awesome. And you'll see he's dragging it along to get full lengths, and so they come out of the blade easily. If you're too jerky with it, you get lots of little pieces, and they get in between the blade and the vegetable, and it becomes harder to peel it. So this is a really good way to do it. Awesome. And it's fun seeing the different colors revealed as you peel open these daikons.
That's a pretty purple color.
Yeah, it is, huh? Violet would like it. All right. And when you peel that, Blue, I'm just going to grab a couple of these little radishes. And we have beets too. I'll just show you guys. I'll show you beets. So I'm going to do beets similar to the carrots there. Just a nice scrub on the outside. So just cleaning up that outside. Getting ready for the pickles. How's that looking?
Like this.
About done?
Yeah, it's good.
All right, bring it on over here. Okay, so we've got some really beautiful vegetables ready to go. We're gonna work on chopping these up and we're gonna put them in jars. We're gonna use these. I love using ball jars. They're really inexpensive. You can find them anywhere. If I opened up my refrigerator, you'd see it filled with ball jars because this is what we use for leftovers and everything like that. So this is sort of our Tupperware at our house. You can also use it for canning. So it's great for a lot of different things. It doesn't have any plastic that can leach into food. It's pretty heat stable. There's a lot of. It's really easy to clean it, and then you can make these jars last a really long time. So I love canning jars. But if you don't have a canning jar, anything that's going to be liquid tight is going to work fine. You could use plastic delis from leftover food containers. Just make sure you scrub them out really well before using them. You could use different shapes. You don't necessarily have to be tall like this. Just anything that's going to contain that liquid that the vegetables are going to sit in would work fine for pickling. So let's get the brine going right now, Blue. So, because this one, we're going to heat this up on the stove a little bit. You want to start off with 4 cups of vinegar here. So we'll just bring it up to the 4-cup mark right there. Awesome, really nice job. All right, throw it in here. And then let's get some water. Now for the water, you can use just tap water, but some tap water has funny tastes. So if you have, if you don't like the taste of your tap water for drinking, you might not like it for pickles. This water comes out of a filtration system, so it's already been filtered. But you could always use, if you have like a Brita water filter, that could work. But whatever flavor the water has with it is going to be with the pickles later. So it's something you want to think a little bit about. Yep. Yeah, water is an ingredient, so we want to think about like the rest of food and the taste and flavor it brings to the food. So right now in there we've got the vinegar and the water. And if that was all we were doing, we wouldn't really have to heat this up. But we're going to be adding sugar, and so we're heating it up so that the sugar can melt thoroughly into the liquid. So you want to do 1 full cup of sugar, Blue.
Just the cup, right?
Yeah, that's great. Now, if you have other kinds of vinegar at home, you can use those. At Clover, we actually use a special kind of vinegar. It's like a high-test vinegar. It's sort of a funny story. At one point, we had a recipe we liked a lot, and then it started tasting like the pickled veggie were a little different, and we followed up with our supplier of the vinegar, and we found out that the vinegar company is like a bulk food service vinegar. They had been slowly diluting it, so it was still vinegar, but the strength of the vinegar, the acidity, was slowly being turned down, and it had happened over a few years, and then we caught it. So we ended up specifying from that point forward, it was like 5 or 6 years ago, specifying the strength of our vinegar. So now when we buy vinegar, we have to specify a certain strength of that vinegar so we can make sure we always have it vinegary enough. The home vinegar, I think, is pretty consistent. You can see this is just grocery store vinegar. Right here it says 5% acidity. And I can't remember exactly what we use at work, but I think it may even be 10%. It might be double this. There you go. Awesome. So if you want to use a different kind of vinegar, you can. You can use apple cider vinegar. That brings a different kind of flavor in. You can use rice vinegar. But just, again, keep in mind, whatever flavor you have in that vinegar is going to be there in the pickles. You want to just grab a wooden spoon from the drawer there, Blue, and it'll just give this a little stir.
Sure. Like this?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's awesome. And so the last thing we're going to add to this is some salt. So we want 4 tablespoons of salt. And that's 1, 2.
Can I stir it like this?
Yep, that's great. 3, 4. So we'll taste it later and make sure that's the right amount of salt. But I think that should turn out pretty well for us. So that's the brine, and that's really all it is. So it's water, vinegar, salt and sugar. Sugar's fully optional. Salt you can include how you want. These ingredients here, not the water, but the vinegar, the salt, and the sugar, they all have preservation qualities. And so that's how this works. So when you have an acidic solution, it's really hard for microbes to grow in there. Sugar and salt also suppress microbe growth. So altogether, this is going to help these last for a really long time. All right, that's awesome. So that's cooking away there. We're going to come over here and we're going to chop some vegetables now. And the thing I would think about when chopping vegetables, one, if you're chopping vegetables with a kid, make sure you're washing them really carefully. Blue has this cool little finger guard, and it's a nice way to train kids to use what we call a claw in the industry. So when we're chopping, we like to have the tips of our fingers back behind our knuckles, and so the blade of the knife is on your knuckles so that you aren't going to cut yourself. And this sort of plays that role for Blue, and it's going to help protect his fingers. That knife, he has this very sharp little knife. It has playful pictures on it, but it's very sharp. And so when we look at this, I'm going to look at where we want to pickle this, and I'm going to sort of judge it against the size. So this carrot is a little longer than we want it to be for that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut it down so that when it goes in there, it's like a nice height for the jar. And so whatever you're using for a jar, you might have a different height that you're going for. And then you can do any shape you want. You could cut these into little discs. That would be fun. I'm doing sticks here. And so there we go. And we've got some carrot sticks. Let's do another one. This one's pretty close. And there we go. The height's right. And again, I'm going to just bring these into little sticks. This method I'm using of cutting it, create like a little bridge with my hands to hold the vegetable, and then I'm pushing my force down. All the different ways of cutting that are safe help it so that if you slip, the blade's not going to cut your hand. So in this case, if I slip, the blade doesn't cut me. If this case, if I slip, the blade doesn't cut me, because when you have a knife in your hand, at some point you're going to slip. And it usually happens when you're not expecting it to happen. So that's looking good. I'm going to get another one. You want to do this one, Blue?
Sure.
All right, so let's measure that. So we're just going to take a little bit off this side and a little bit off that side, okay?
That much?
Yep, that's great.
Good.
All right.
Over.
Yep. Awesome. Now yeah, that looks really good. Awesome. So you wanna try and cut it. The bigger blade might be easier.
I don't think it can reach.
Yeah. You want to try it with mine?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do it. Here, I'll get you the first cut. Then you can try and do the next ones. Nice job. Yep, so when you're doing that, just roll it. Yeah, start with the front tip of it. There you go, and just roll it down. There you go, nice and controlled. Good job. Again, try that same thing. Like start with the front tip and roll it down. Boom. Okay. Cutting carrots this way does take some force. So if you're doing it with kids, maybe I should have done it the discs, which are a lot easier to cut. All right, then we'll put some more carrots in there. So you'll see as we're doing this, I'm sort of shaking it a little bit. So we want to pack it reasonably dense. Otherwise, you're going to use up a lot of brine in each pickle jar. So you want to get that one going there, Blue?
Sure. Try and measure it. It's probably good.
How's that looking? Pretty good?
I don't think
Yeah, you want to, here, you do those cuts, I'll do these cuts. How's that? Hey, Clem.
No.
All right. And that's probably good. This is probably all we're going to fit in here. All right. So, I'm just jamming these in. It feels really tight, but once we add the liquid in and they jostle around a little bit, it'll actually look like I underpacked it. Okay, so we've got a nice jar packed full of beautiful carrots. So that's ready to go. Let's do another one right now. Let's do some of these guys, Blue.
It's fun to see all the different colors.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I'm doing like full moons of these. So you can see, and now this one, and this happens sometimes, this one's got a little blemish, a little bad spot. I'm just going to lop that off. So you want to keep an eye on it. You want to make sure everything in there is something you want to eat. We're just going to take those pieces off. Blue, do you want to do one sort of similar, but let's have you do a half moons, okay? So I'll set it up for you. So why don't you use that, put that flat side down, and then just go ahead and cut half moons there.
There we go.
Awesome. All right, why don't go ahead and get those on in there. All right, so I'm just shaking those down in there. So we've got some daikons ready to go. Let's do some beets. Yeah, let's fill that up with beets. And on the beets, Blue, let's cut them this way. So let's lop off their little end, lop off the top of it, and then let's just go ahead and cut these into little chunks like that. Does that make sense?
Beets are pretty easy to cut.
Yeah, a little easier than the carrots.
Yeah.
Garlic is really yummy with pickles. We are all out of garlic. I think I should have gotten more before we started isolating ourselves. But we might find a garlic source
Can I get this one?
sometime soon.
With a little bit.
Yeah, if you can fit some more in there, sure. And do maybe one more beet. Okay. Oh, that's pretty. It's really pretty, Blue.
There you go.
All right. Work that in wherever you have room
The
for it.
whiteness and the
Yeah, it's awesome. Oops. Now these roots would have been harvested in the fall, and they've been stored up till now, and they're getting to the end of their storage season. Awesome. All right, and another thing you could add to these onions. I'm going to show you guys some things without mixes. This is a little organic pickling spice. I got this from the CSA that we've used for years. Linden Tree here in Lincoln. Somebody was selling this spice last year. But if you want to use your own spices, this is coriander. It has allspice in there. It has little bits of bay leaves. It looks like it has mustard seeds in there. So you can use a number of different spices, and you'll end up, there's also cloves in there. You end up with different flavor profiles. And so if you're adding garlic, if you're adding dill, if you're adding some spices, now would be a good time to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to add in some spices on those two. But if you don't have spices, that's fine. The brine that we're making should be really delicious. All right, and now we're just about done with this step. So I'm gonna take a little bit of this brine, just a little spoon of it, and I'm just tasting it for like if it's got the right amount of saltiness and sweetness for us. It tastes awesome. So, Blue, you want to taste some too?
Sure.
All right. Don't take too much because it is like vinegar. There you go, and it is hot, so blow it a little bit. All right, and so we're gonna fill up these jars now with that liquid. You like it?
Yeah.
All right. You like the sugar in it, huh? So I've got a little tool here. Here, Blue. We're just grabbing this. All right. So this is an indispensable tool. It's a canning funnel. If you don't have this, a ladle works fine, or just very, very careful pouring. And so at this point, what we're doing is we're taking the hot liquid and we're just pouring it over our pickles.
Good.
How's that look? Do you want to move it to the next one? Let's save this one. All right, I'm gonna do something different with that one.
This one is a little.
Yeah. You want to do that one next? Okay. 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 Want to do the next one? Okay. Hot peppers can also be a really fun thing to add in. You all right?
Yeah.
I just hold it steady. All right, that's good. Okay, awesome. You'll be fine. We'll put a lid on it. Now, though, I'm just going to show you one more thing, and then we're going to give Michael Doctor a call. So the last thing I'm going to show you is this. This is a bottle of soy sauce, and what I'm going to do is make. I'm going to make like shoyu pickles, which is if you pour soy sauce over the vegetables, the soy sauce will keep them preserved, which is just awesome. And we'll keep this in the refrigerator as well, along with the other pickles, and it will last for a very, very long time. I've had this style pickle that's been 3 years old, and it's been delicious. You can also use so I think that, I'm hoping that these settle down. I would like all the vegetables be below the liquid, and what I'll do is check and see if that's naturally settling. If it's not, I'll take some off the top. But this style of pickle in your refrigerator will last a couple of years, and these get really, really delicious. They're beautiful if you cut up little pieces and put them in soup, stir fry, things like that. And the soy sauce in here is also going to gain a lot of flavor, so you don't have to throw that away. You can use that later.
What was the stuff you had? I think it was like 9 years.
The garlic?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a different than in the miso paste. Yeah, we had that for a really long time. So those ones, that was another style, which we may get into at another point. All right, so we're just going to put the lids on all of these, and then pickling. All right, so that's making quick pickles. I'm gonna ring Michael Doctor now and bring him in so we can ask him some questions and chat with him. All right, and here, let's maybe just help this. Just do boom. There it is, and this. All right, whoops, that's Jesse. All right, and I've got to.
All right, and then the sounds.
Hold on just a second. All right, so I think yeah, do you want to turn on their? Perfect. Okay. All right, and then the audio for this camera we need to turn. That's good. All right, perfect. And should be working. All right. Hi, guys. Can you hear me? Oh, I can't hear them. Can you hear them? Probably not. Let me see. Well, it looks like it should work. Oh, how's that? How's that? Oh, that should be on. These should be on. I'm just not able to hear them. Well, hey, I'm having trouble hearing you guys. Why don't you stay there, and I'll just try and come back in and see if that works. All right, can you hear me? No. Why don't I have this? Why don't I have you guys leave and rejoin? I'm just having trouble with hearing you on the audio.
Papa?
Yeah.
Should I put these in the fridge when we're ready?
No, you can just leave them there. That's great. All right. How's that? Oh. Can you guys hear me? A thumbs up if you can hear me. Oh, okay. I just can't hear you. That's funny. Well, I don't know what to do to fix that. So let's see. This is. You've got. So this is this. So that's got to put them both on, but I can't figure out why I can't hear them on this audio, which is like making it hard for me to talk to them. Let me try another way. I got another idea. I will try to connect. Let's see. Is that any better? Huh. Well, I'm still having trouble with the audio here. Can you guys hear? You guys can still hear me? It's strange. Just check your. There's a little. There maybe the mute's on. All right, so bear with us. Sorry, we're trying to figure this out.
This will work.
Does that work now? Can you
I
hear
just
us?
restarted it. He's not in yet. Hold on.
Okay, it's working now.
Great.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's working.
Okay. All right.
So, sorry, I don't know what that was. It's this is still something we're sorting out. Thanks for bearing with us.
No
All right.
worries.
All right, awesome. So
Hello.
I think we're hold on a second. There we go. All right. Okay, so we're on. Hi guys, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
My son Jesse, and I'm Michael.
Hey, thank you so much for taking some time, guys. Sorry about trying to get that sound set up and everything.
No worries.
Really
fine.
So, you guys have some beautiful vegetables right there.
Yeah.
Maybe to start off with, I'd just love to ask you a few questions, Michael, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So I discovered you through Clover, but you've been farming for a very, very long time, right?
Yeah. Getting close to maybe 25 or 30 years now. Who's counting?
Yeah. And when did you start specializing in root vegetables?
Well, I ran the what was called the food bank farm for about 20 years until 08 or so.
Uh-huh.
And then in 08, 09, we started specializing in just root crops. And we wanted to grow something that would be available in the wintertime. There wasn't a lot of local produce available at that time. And we wanted something that would, a farming system that would have a really minimal carbon footprint. So we have a storage that runs off of very little electricity by using a computer and a fan and a door, and it lets the cold air in the wintertime instead of using energy-intensive compressors.
And I mean, I remember when we first learned about how you store your vegetables, it was very impressive. And your vegetables taste amazing. I mean, one of my passions is things that are as simple as a carrot that can have so much flavor. I think we don't often think about simple vegetables as having, you know, a lot of variation, but they really do. And every time we taste your carrots with customers, they're shocked. I mean, I don't think anybody would confuse the type of carrot you grow with a grocery store carrot. Do you and do you you want to just share like what kind of root vegetables you grow on your farm?
Yeah, I mean, basically our storage is cold and it's got high humidity. So anything that we can store in that environment is what we grow, if we can grow it in New England. So that's carrots, beets, parsnips, radishes, turnips, and rutabagas. And that's about it. But we do a whole lot of different varieties and colors within those categories.
And the vegetables you have are so beautiful. I mean, we were all just looking at them, and Blue couldn't help but saying how pretty they are. Tell me about like how that plays into what you do. Is that something that's important to you, and how do you think about that?
It's part of it. You know, I'm a flavor guy mostly. What drives me is really taste, but color is obviously important to people as well. You know, most vegetables that you buy in the supermarket have been designed to ship well, and
Mhm.
that's not one of our concerns because we do everything locally as much as possible. They're designed to have uniform, color and
Mhm.
shape, and that doesn't matter to us either. What we're really looking for is just flavors. So over the years, we've been picking out varieties that taste good, that grow well.
And the daikon we just cut open is like a purpley daikon with
Yeah.
Was that called Starburst Daikon? Am I remembering that right?
It is purple Starburst Daikon. Yep. It's a delicious radish. And this is a green meat, also in the daikon. It has got a nice bite to it.
Uh-huh. And when you say bite, like it's a little bit spicy?
A little tiny bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, depending on what your tolerance is.
Yeah. And so you have a bunch of radishes there. Should we all be eating more radishes?
Well, yeah. Now that you mention it,
Absolutely.
they're good, and they're a few years ago people weren't buying our radishes, and now people are starting to buy them because we're getting them to try them. They're not your supermarket radish. Obviously, they're much bigger. These are Asian radishes, daikons. Daikon means big radish in Chinese, so I'm told.
Okay.
And so, we have about several thousand pounds of radishes left, and so we'd love it if people ate radishes. And in fact, you just gave a nice little tutorial on how to make quick pickles. My son Jesse recently laid off chef from Oleana restaurant.
Just cook.
Just cook, sorry. And he's going to show his little how he does it, and so that way people can see it twice, because there's going to be a test at the end of this. Yeah,
well, we'd love to see it. I see you've got something a little bit.
Well, the test is that we're going to give everybody a whole mess of radishes a week from Thursday at the Clover Hub, and they can donate whatever they feel like paying for a large quantity of radishes, and we will donate that money to Boston Gleaners, or you can donate money to your favorite group that's getting out there and helping people in this incredible time of need. And so, anyway, that's.
Well, we'll make sure everybody gets more details on that.
Yeah, thank you. As you have been incredible about getting the word out about things that we've been doing in this city, and we so appreciate it. It's been such a huge help to our farm.
Well, I think as we've had to suspend our operations, I've had to lay people off too, Jesse. Sorry to hear, but it's you have a lot of friends who are in the same situation right now, and then the other piece of it, which I think is less obvious to some folks, is people like you sell to us, and all of that dried up really quickly too. So we're trying to do our best to connect customers directly with the food they love. And part of that means cooking at home, and I don't think everybody has the experience, and so we've been trying to work with really basic recipes. So you've got that looks like a mandolin there. That
Yeah.
you wanna talk us through this?
Yeah. So basically, there's going to be a test at the end, but the secret is that basically all the answers are right, because radishes or pickles are just quick pickles, a super forgiving medium. So things are a little different, but you can, as long as you have a good amount of vinegar, a good amount of sugar, a good amount of salt, you're going to preserve your vegetables pretty well, and you're going to have that nice, crisp, refreshing pickle taste. So this one is a little bit different just because we're doing just radishes. So the radishes aren't as sweet as the carrots or the beets, so this is a little bit of a sweeter brine. And then the main meal that we have in this house is tacos. So these are kind of spiced in accordance with that. There's a lot of cilantro from the coriander seeds, and there's also some dried chilies in the brine. So
what else would you have? You'd have tacos. You have like corn tacos or flour tacos?
We have Meteora corn tortillas, which are another product that my dad can talk about. But yeah, they're corn grown here in Hadley, Massachusetts. Baked fresh in Springfield, local product. Super, super good. Super hard to find anything like that flavor in the Northeast or even in America. That just really good corn tortilla that people don't know the flavor of, with no preservatives. Super delicious. So we make tacos all the time here, featuring lots of local vegetables. And yeah, this is just kind of a radish pickle that is a really nice, light, refreshing garnish for a taco. A little salty, a little sweet, a little spicy.
What else would you have on the taco? 'Cause I bet there's some people who are gonna try and create this at home.
Yeah, well, we just had some, seasoned beans and cheese and a nice avocado and some hot sauce and some radish pickles. It was really good.
Sounds delicious.
But I don't know. We make all kinds of different tacos.
Yeah, whatever we got. Goes on.
Yeah, whatever's in the fridge. With a pickle on top. Yeah. But yeah, so I'm using a mandolin here. You can definitely use a knife if you don't feel comfortable using it. It is dangerous. I like these super thin radish rounds. They're not going to keep for a year in your fridge just because they're too small. I would say they have optimal crunch for about 2 months, but I promise that you'll eat them in that time. So just going to be really careful, keeping my knuckles far above the mandolin. This is...
Early on at Clover, we banned mandolins.
You did, yeah.
It only took me a couple months to figure that out, but yeah.
It's just not the rule that we have is you're not allowed to talk when you're using it.
Yeah,
Very good.
But he's a pro.
And the other rule is just stop. There's no need to go. You can clean that up with a knife later. That's just unnecessary. But as you see, you get a really beautiful slice. I haven't been peeling them because I really like the color contrast between the skin and the center.
Yeah.
But you will have to, kind of get in there with a knife and clean the outsides up a little bit for some of them. And with the green meat radish, I would say it's important to not peel it because that's where all the bite is. If you want that spiciness, it's almost all in the radish.
Oh, okay.
So I have a brine over here that I've been keeping hot, but I'm just going to bring it back to a boil. This is 3-2-1, 3 parts water, 2 parts rice vinegar, 1 part sugar, and then a bunch of spices that you'll see as I strain them into the jar. But yeah, I'm just gonna get this jar ready with a mix of purple and green radishes. Really pack them in there, as I was saying.
Glad to see you're using it.
And so while you're packing that, I'm seeing a couple of questions people are asking.
Yeah.
And so just to answer a couple of those, some people are asking about different kinds of vinegar. What kind of vinegar do you guys use?
We use rice vinegar. It's definitely a little bit less neutral than the white vinegar. So, maybe use the white vinegar if you want more dominant radish flavor. Yeah. It's a little bit sweeter than the white vinegar, but it's really up to you. I think cider vinegar is good too. That's a very dominant vinegar flavor.
Yeah.
But yeah, as long as you have that acidity, you can kind of mix and match.
Okay.
I just brought this back to a boil and I'm gonna strain it into this jar here.
Yep.
And so yeah, the liquid's just at that temperature where it's just barely kind of softening the radishes, but not really cooking them, which creates a really nice texture. And
are you gonna keep these in your refrigerator?
Yeah, we'll keep them in the fridge. Just make sure everything's covered as the best you can. And as you can see in the brine here, I put some mustard seeds, some coriander, some black peppercorn, some dried peppers. I just took a whole head of garlic and sliced it right in half because that's kind of the beauty of things that you strain is that you don't have to prep them as much. And also the beauty of things that you strain is that since you're pulling the flavor out of things, you can kind of root through your fridge for things that you wouldn't use in other contexts, like garlic skin, cilantro stems, herb stems of any kind. That's all stuff that still has flavor, but you probably wouldn't use for another context where you're not straining it. So
you're saying that you put the garlic and those peppers into the brine while you're boiling them and the spices as well.
Yeah.
And then you're filtering them out so they're not going to be in the jar.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
You could throw the garlic in too afterwards.
Yeah, you can throw the garlic in the jar, definitely. That's a good idea, actually.
I hate to throw me garlic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially Ira, like he's got no garlic, man.
Yeah, you make me
Garlic
jealous.
shortage out
I'll
there.
take your leftover garlic.
Yeah, but this is basically a finished product. I would say within 30 minutes, that's going to be a very flavorful pickle, and then it's going to hold for about, you know, I would say it's going to be crunchy for about 2 months, and after that, it's definitely going to be safe to eat, but maybe won't have quite the same texture. But yeah, that's a wrap.
It looks super yummy. That's it's awesome. Well, I've got a couple more questions for you, Michael.
Sure.
Somebody was asking how you harvest all of the root vegetables. Is it all done by hand, or how's that happen?
It is. We have a crew of wonderful workers that come together, and we have the radishes and the carrots or whatever they are growing in the ground, and we lift them up with a bar that undercuts them basically.
Uh-huh.
Kind of lifts them out of the ground, loosens them up, and then we come through with the radishes, and we have a lot of sharp knives, and we cut the tops off. We put them into a bucket, and then we dump them into a bin, and then we lift the bins up with the tractors. So it's primarily by hand. It would be considered handwork compared to most big farms. They're using big machines that go in and grab the carrots, pull the tops, cut the tops off, and put them on a conveyor. We just never. We're always trying to get everything in really, really fast. And if we get a big enough crew, we can move a lot faster than that machine. Our storage facility only works on cold nights. So there's only certain nights that we can pick in November. And so we got to do things really fast. Plus, we like working with people and giving people jobs. So.
And how long will, what are the last root vegetables you have each season? And when is that they start going bad?
Normally we go to the first week or two of April, so we're getting toward the end. Our storage is winding down. There's not a lot left in it, so we're about where we should be.
And so for you, your timing is better for all the COVID crisis everybody's facing. Is it changing your business or how you're thinking about planting for next year?
Well, we're definitely thinking about it. It is changing everything, and obviously, we're not supplying as many restaurants as we used to. The tortillas, we've gone from a third of our business in tortillas were to some restaurants, and now the retail end is growing rapidly. So I think we're going to be okay there. What worries me about the vegetables is that people are going to be afraid to touch vegetables anymore, and we're going to have to put everything into a little tiny plastic bag, and everybody is washing everything pretty frantically right now. It's a respiratory disease. It's not impossible that you could get it from touching something, but I think they're being very cautious right now, as they should be. But I think when it's all done, it's very likely that people are going to I hope that we want to put everything in a plastic bag, because I think people are going to realize that it's about breathing on each other that we got to watch out for.
Well, a good thing for everybody to remember: soap works really, really well against this virus. It just obliterates it. So as soon as soap hits it, it cleans everything up really well. Yeah. And you can definitely wash vegetables. You just need to make sure you rinse them really well after.
Right.
So the other thing I was wondering about, I looked up to farmers, I think, my whole life. I think of it, my parents are teachers. I think of farming and teaching as very selfless things, and I know how hard they are. I'm just wondering, for you personally, do you look at what you do as sort of a sacrifice for others, or do you look at it as something you're doing for yourself, or a combination of those? How do you think about being a farmer?
Oh, most of the time we're having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it's stressful, but I think everything's stressful if you depending on how you do it. We enjoy what we do. I can't imagine not being outside, and I can't imagine not being around a lot of good food. So no, it's not a sacrifice.
Yeah. Well, something I miss a lot from the food truck days was just it sort of sunk in after a year or two of doing it, but just being outside every day, and life's different when you're outside every day. It's a special thing.
It sure is. It sure is. And hopefully everybody out there is getting outside a little bit for some fresh air in these times.
Yeah, nobody has to be scared of the outside yet, right?
No.
Well,
no.
I wanted
and I think it's still safe to eat food too.
Yeah, I think so. And it can taste good too, right?
Yeah, it does.
That's still okay. Well, I want to thank you guys for joining. I love what you do. It's really wonderful. Jesse, I can't wait to eat at Oleana again. You're one of my favorite
Awesome.
restaurants.
Can't wait to have you.
Yeah,
Can't wait to eat at Clover again.
Yeah.
When everything reopens.
We'll all be back at it. But
Yes,
thank you guys
yeah,
for
for
joining
sure.
us today. I really
Thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much. For
Thank you.
joining us.
Thanks.
Take care.
I guess I should leave the room. Okay.
All right, I think we're good. So if we did that right, we should be back. And I think we're going to wrap this up. A big thanks to Michael Doctor and to Jesse for joining. It was really fun to see those tips. And it's a great reminder, we focused on a super, super simple recipe because I want to give you guys a foundation that you can build from. So feel free to have fun with it. You're not going to make something horrible, and you get to taste it the next day. You can try this with less sugar or no sugar. You can try changing the salt level, and you can try it with different spices if you'd like as well. If you have some soy sauce at home, I think that's a really fun one to try. You saw how this happened. It was really just chopping up that daikon and then submerging it in soy sauce. So you can't get easier than that, and it's gonna be really, really yummy over the coming weeks. So I just want to thank everybody. Thanks, Blue, for joining. And we're going to, as we start to get our feet under us and figure out how to do this from a technical standpoint, I want to make sure we're communicating with people, because the goal is for people at home to try out new recipes and to try some of these things and experiment. And I want to hear some of the results of those. So we'll be following up with questions. And in the meantime, if you have questions about what to pickle, please reach out to us and ask. If you've got any other questions or suggestions for things that you would like to see later, that's great as well. We're going to do beans for the next 2 days, which I'm very excited about, and I'm just going to get you guys started on that. I think if any of you have some dried beans at home, so we'll talk a lot more about beans. And there's some people that like to soak them before cooking. There's some people that prefer not to. I usually soak mine. I'll sometimes start in the morning and then cook them later in that day. And I will start some soaking right now. So when we come back tomorrow, you guys can see them. Actually, let me show you. These are from Rancho Gordo, which is a purveyor from California. And these are called Scarlet Runners. So you can see they tend to feature different heirloom beans. These are really beautiful heirloom bean. And so we'll get these soaking. These are big beans, and so I picked these to soak because you'll get to see how big they get. When we come on tomorrow, I wouldn't be surprised if it's filled up almost to the top. And so what we're going to do to soak these beans are pretty clean, but sometimes you need to make sure there's no stones in your beans, or you need to rinse them off a little, depending on where your beans are coming from. But again, these ones are very clean. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cover them in water. So I was saying before, I really love ball jars. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave these at room temperature, so that's where they're going to hang out. And we're going to come back tomorrow, and you guys will get to see what those look like. We'll be spending a bunch of time on beans tomorrow. We'll be spending time on these beans and some other bean recipes, and we'll set ourselves up for Friday. If you want to follow along at home, the idea is on Friday we're going to do, tomorrow we're going to do like a really simple preparation of beans, and we might have some beans and rice, maybe with some of these pickles that we just set up. I think they might be delicious with that. Friday we're going to make a traditional New England dish, which everybody in Boston area used to eat on Saturday or Sunday, but I don't think many people make anymore because it's such a simple thing. But we're going to make Boston baked beans and brown bread. It's one of my favorites. My dad was born in New Bedford, and he grew up eating that every day on a Saturday. And I think that if you go back in time, people used to eat baked beans on Sunday because they were avoiding cooking anything on Sunday, on the Sabbath, and they would set them up the night before. But I think it sort of merged to a place where people were eating on Saturdays, a really traditional thing. So we're going to make Boston brown bread and Boston baked beans. I'm going to show you all how to do that on Friday, so if you want to make that for your dinner on Saturday, you should be able to. You're just going to need molasses and soldier or navy beans. If you don't have those, kidney beans will work fine. So we'll go through that all in more detail. So beans are coming up tomorrow and Friday. thanks everybody for joining us.